SIL ACC * said me of cheating and said my newborn wasn't my husband's baby while I was in the hospital. But now her own husband left her after a DNA test proved she actually cheated and her baby isn't his. Can you believe someone once tried to tear my life apart, accusing me of cheating and saying my newborn wasn't my husband's? Well, karma's a real bitch, because the universe served up that exact same devastating betrayal to her tenfold. And, oh, the irony, you just have to hear this. It's a story about family, betrayal, and a comeuppance so shocking, it still makes my head spin. When I found out I was pregnant, honestly, I felt like the luckiest person alive. Marcus and I had been trying for what felt like forever, and when that positive test finally showed up, it was like a dream come true. We were ecstatic. Our families were thrilled, too. Well, most of them were. There was one person who just wasn't. My sister-in-law, Marcia. Marcia and we never really clicked. She was always the type to make these little comments that sounded like jokes, but felt sharper than a knife. Things like, "Wow, you're brave to wear that," or, "I don't know how you two make it work, but good for you." It was always something, always a jab. Marcus, bless his heart, would just shrug and say, "That's Marcia. She doesn't mean anything by it." So, I tried to let it roll off my back, tried not to let her get to me. But during my pregnancy, her comments started to feel different. Worse. She'd make these really weird, uncomfortable jokes about how Marcus and I weren't exactly alike, and how it would be hilarious if our baby, Perry, didn't take after him. I didn't say anything because who needs drama when you're pregnant, right? But deep down it stung. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it, that she was just being Marcia. Then Perry was born, and everything just went wrong. I'd planned for a smooth delivery, but it turned into an emergency C-section. After that, I had complications and ended up in the ICU for a few days. It was one of the hardest, most terrifying times of my life. I felt so weak, so scared, constantly worrying if I'd even be okay for Perry and Marcus. And it was while I was lying there, barely able to sit up, that Marcus told me something that completely shattered my world. He said Marcia had actually told him he should get a DNA test for Perry. She'd brought it up while I was still in surgery, recovering. Can you believe the audacity? Apparently, she said something chilling like, "You never know these days. It's better to check and be sure." Marcus said he told her to stop, that he trusted me completely. He didn't even think twice about it, but he felt I deserved to know. I was utterly floored, humiliated, hurt. Here I was, fighting for my life, and Marcia was out there sowing seeds of doubt, suggesting my baby might not even be Marcus's. There was absolutely no reason for her to say that. I had never, ever given anyone cause to question my faithfulness. It felt like she was trying to tear me down when I was already at my lowest, most vulnerable point. When I asked Marcus why he didn't shut her down harder, why he even entertained her nonsense for a second, he just said he didn't want to make a scene. He thought brushing it off would make her stop. He just didn't get how serious this was to me. Knowing what Marcia had said, while I was literally fighting for my life, I felt betrayed, not just by her, but honestly, a little bit by Marcus, too. After we brought Perry home, I tried to move past it, but I couldn't. Marcia was always around because she visited my in-laws, Juan and David, all the time. Every time I saw her, it was like a fresh wound reopening. I kept picturing her, laughing to herself, maybe even spreading rumors to other people that Marcus needed to check if Perry was really his. I felt sick every time I imagined her holding my baby, pretending to care. What made it even worse was when Marcia found out I was upset. Instead of apologizing, she weaponized it. She started telling people I was being hormonal and overreacting. She even called me a B-word behind my back, saying I needed to lighten up. She acted like her DNA comment was no big deal, like I was the one blowing it out of proportion. I heard all this from other family members who thought I should know what she was saying. Every word felt like another slap in the face. Marcia didn't just say something hurtful. She doubled down, then painted herself as the victim. Even at family gatherings, she wouldn't stop. She'd make these little comments like, "Wow, Perry's so cute, but she doesn't really look like Marcus, does she?" Then she'd giggle, like it was the funniest thing in the world. I knew she was doing it on purpose to push my buttons, and it worked. I couldn't hide my anger. I started avoiding family events just to avoid her. Marcus tried to talk to her, but it didn't do much. He told her to stop bringing up the DNA test and to quit making jokes about Perry's looks. But Marcia just didn't care. She kept saying I was overreacting, that she didn't mean anything by it. It was like nothing I felt mattered to her. I couldn't understand how someone could be so cruel. I had just gone through a traumatic birth, and instead of support, Marcia tried to tear me down. And when I got upset, she mocked me for it. It felt like no one fully understood how deeply it affected me. Even Marcus, who tried to defend me, didn't seem to grasp the true emotional damage. Marcia turned our whole family into a minefield for me. Every get-together was a source of anxiety. Even when she wasn't there, I'd wonder what she was saying behind my back. It was exhausting. Juan and David, my in-laws, didn't get involved much. Juan told Marcia to drop it once, but it felt so insufficient. I wanted someone to truly tell Marcia that what she did was wrong, that she crossed a line. Instead, it felt like everyone was just brushing it off. The whole thing irrevocably changed how I saw Marcia. I never particularly liked her, but now I couldn't even be in the same room without feeling a surge of anger. I didn't want her anywhere near me or Perry. It wasn't just the DNA comment. It was her refusal to apologize, her refusal to take any responsibility. She acted like I was the problem, not her. Then one day, months later, Marcia called me out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to her in ages, and honestly, I never expected to hear from her again. After everything she'd done, we were definitely not on good terms. But this call was different. She sounded different.
Sad.
Desperate, even.
She started talking about her life.
Marcia had just had a baby, and things had gone completely, horribly wrong for her. Her husband, Zach, had left her shortly after the baby was born. She explained that Zach had doubts about whether the baby was his. At first, I thought she was exaggerating, but then she admitted it. Zach went ahead and got a DNA test done. And the test proved it. The baby wasn't his. Hearing her admit that felt like something out of a movie. This was the same woman who had once told my husband to test our baby because you can never be too sure. She'd planted doubt in Marcus's mind, made my life a living hell when I was already at my lowest.
And now,
the karma had come around and hit her harder than I could have ever imagined. After the results, Zach didn't stick around. He packed his bags and left her alone. With a newborn and absolutely no support, Marcia told me the rest of the family had turned their backs on her, too. Juan and David didn't want her to stay with them, and no one else in the family would help either. And then she asked the impossible, if she and her baby could move in with us. When I heard her say that, I froze. This woman had treated me like dirt for years. She made my life miserable after Perry was born, throwing around cruel accusations and jokes at my expense. She called me names, made me feel completely worthless. And now she wanted me to let her into my home, to help her? At first, all I felt was pure, unadulterated anger. How dare she ask me for help after everything she did? She never apologized, never tried to make things right. She just went on with her life like nothing happened. And now that she was in trouble, she wanted me to bail her out? But then, I started thinking about her baby. None of this was that innocent child's fault. It wasn't fair for a baby to suffer because of Marcia's mistakes. No matter how much I disliked Marcia, I couldn't ignore the fact that there was an innocent life involved. At the same time, I had to think about my own family. Marcus and I had worked so hard to create a stable, happy home for Perry. Things were finally starting to feel normal again after all the drama Marcia caused. Letting her move in felt like inviting chaos straight back into our lives. I didn't trust her, and I wasn't sure I ever could. Marcus wasn't thrilled about the idea either. He was angry at Marcia for how she treated me and didn't think she deserved our help. But he also felt bad for her. She was his sister, and no matter how awful she'd been, he didn't want to see her completely alone. I went back and forth, agonizing over what to do. On one hand, Marcia created this mess herself. She lied to her husband, and now she was dealing with the consequences. She didn't deserve sympathy for that. On the other hand, how could I turn her away when she was clearly at her lowest point? I also couldn't shake the feeling that her apology wasn't genuine. She said she was sorry for everything, but it felt more like she was saying what she thought I wanted to hear. It didn't feel real, and I couldn't bring myself to believe her. I wondered if she'd really changed, or if she'd just go back to her old ways the moment she got back on her feet. Marcia had always been quick to judge, to tear others down. What would happen if I let her move in? Would she treat me with any respect, or would she just take advantage of my kindness? I tried to focus on the facts. Marcia had burned all her bridges. Zach was gone. Her own family wasn't willing to help her. She had no one else to turn to, which was why she came to me. But that wasn't my fault. She had put herself in this situation. It wasn't my responsibility to fix it for her. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about the baby. As much as I didn't want Marcia in my life, I felt terrible for the child. Turning her away felt like punishing an innocent baby for something that wasn't their fault. But letting her move in felt like inviting trouble directly into my home. The whole situation left me feeling utterly torn. I don't want to be the kind of person who turns away someone in need, but I also didn't want to put my family at risk. Marcia had caused so much pain in the past, and I wasn't sure I was ready to forgive her. Now I'm stuck, trying to figure out what to do. No matter what I decide, it feels like the wrong choice. Update 1. After a lot of agonizing back and forth, Marcus and I decided to let Marcia move into an apartment we owned. We'd originally bought it a few years ago as a rental property for extra income. But with everything going on, it seemed like the best option for her. This way, she wouldn't have to live with us directly, but at least she'd have a roof over her head. Marcus made it clear that while she wouldn't have to pay rent, she would need to cover her own bills, utilities, groceries, everything else. It felt fair to us, and Juan and David thought it was incredibly generous, especially given Marcia's situation. They encouraged her to take it, and she agreed. For a while, everything seemed fine. Marcia mostly kept to herself. Things were still a little awkward between us, but I started to think maybe, just maybe, it could work out if she stayed in the apartment and focused on figuring things out on her own. For a bit, the arrangement actually worked, and I even started to believe we might be able to move past everything. But then, something completely unexpected happened. We found out that Zach, Marcia's ex-husband, had filed a restraining order against her. It was shocking. For months, Marcia had been regularly calling family members, staying in touch, and then suddenly, no one had heard from her. This news caught us all completely off guard. We didn't know what to think. It was just so unexpected. Marcus happened to be talking to Zach about work, and he decided to ask him what was going on. Zach didn't hold anything back. He told Marcus the whole, horrifying story. According to Zach, Marcia had been stalking him. She had been showing up at his workplace uninvited, lingering outside his house, following him around. This wasn't a one-off thing. It had been going on for weeks. Zach said she was even bothering his family members, showing up at their homes, making them incredibly uncomfortable. When Zach finally confronted Marcia, she broke down. She begged him to come back, told him she loved him, said she'd made a huge mistake. She promised she'd do anything to fix things between them. She wanted him back, and she couldn't stand the thought of him being with someone else. But Zach was crystal clear. He told her he was done. He reminded her of the affair, which was obviously a deal-breaker. He told her he was finished, and nothing would change that. Marcia didn't listen. She just kept following him, showing up wherever he was, calling him nonstop. She even went as far as contacting his immediate and extended family. It got so bad that Zach had no choice. He had to file for a restraining order. He just needed her to leave him alone and let him move on. When Marcus found out, he immediately told Juan and David. They were absolutely shocked and profoundly disappointed. At first, they didn't know how to react, but eventually, they decided to confront Marcia about it. When they asked her about the restraining order, Marcia denied everything. She claimed Zach was lying, that it wasn't true, that he was making it all up. But no one believed her. It just didn't add up. If Zach had gone through the trouble of filing a restraining order, something serious had to have happened. Juan asked her flat out, why would Zach go to such lengths if nothing happened? Marcia didn't have an answer. She just sat there in silence. After that conversation, no one in the family spoke to her. It was clear she'd made some truly egregious mistakes, and no one was willing to take her side anymore. She was still living in the apartment, but her relationship with the family was clearly falling apart. Marcia kept trying to reach out, calling everyone multiple times, but no one answered. Her calls went ignored. She had burned too many bridges, and now she was completely on her own. At first, I almost felt bad for her. She was clearly struggling, and it seemed like she had no one left. But at the same time, I knew she had put herself in this situation. She was the one who made those choices, who pushed everyone away. It wasn't up to us to fix things for her. Marcus and I decided to stay a little distant from the situation. We wanted to make sure everything was okay with her living in the apartment, but we didn't want to get too deeply involved. We hoped Marcia would eventually face the reality of what she'd done and try to change her behavior. But as time went on, things only seemed to get worse. No one in the family was speaking to her. She kept calling, but no one would pick up. It was undeniable that her actions had pushed everyone away, and now she was facing the full consequences. I tried to stay out of it. I didn't want to be the one to fix things for Marcia, especially after everything she'd done to me. It was heartbreaking to see her struggling, but she needed to take responsibility for her actions. As much as Marcus wanted to help her, he knew that she had to want to change first. She couldn't expect anyone to fix things for her if she wasn't willing to put in the effort herself. I'm still not sure where things will go from here. Marcia is still living in the apartment, but the tension with the family is higher than ever. No one knows what to do next, and no one seems to want to get involved. Marcus and I are just waiting to see whether things improve or get even worse. At this point, I'm not sure what more we can do. We gave her a chance, and now it's up to her to make things right. Until she takes genuine responsibility for her actions, I don't think anything will truly change. Update 2. Recently, we had a family dinner at Juan and David's place. It was already a bit strange because things had been so awkward with Marcia for a while, but we were all trying to keep the peace. However, as soon as she arrived, we knew something was definitely off. Marcia was nearly 2 hours late. We'd all been sitting around, chatting and waiting, but she wasn't usually that late, especially for a family dinner. When she finally walked in, it was glaringly obvious that something was wrong. She didn't look like herself at all. Marcia has always been the type to make sure she looks her absolute best, from her clothes to her hair. But that night, she looked completely different. Her hair was messy, her clothes weren't anything she'd normally wear. She just looked disoriented, like she was mentally somewhere else entirely. Everyone at the table knew something wasn't quite right. A little while after Marcia finally showed up, David's friend, Martin, arrived. Now, this was really strange. David hadn't told anyone he was inviting Martin. We were all a little confused, but we didn't think too much of it at first. Maybe he'd just decided to bring him along at the last minute. But the timing felt odd, and the whole vibe in the room had already shifted with Marcia's weird arrival. Marcia went upstairs to put her daughter, Zola, to bed. A few minutes later, she came back down, and that's when things got even weirder. She walked straight over to Martin, kissed him on the lips, and then, completely casually, introduced him to everyone. It was like the air just got sucked out of the room. We all sat there, staring. Marcia acting like nothing was wrong, the way she just announced him.
So strange.
She then dropped the bomb. Of course, you guys know him as Dad's friend, but what you don't know is that he's also Zola's daddy. Everyone froze. Utter silence. We had no idea what to say. David looked utterly shocked, and so did everyone else. Marcia just stood there, completely casual, like this was totally normal. The tension in the room was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. David was the first to speak, but honestly, he looked like he was about to lose it. He was so angry I thought he might actually punch Martin. Marcus had to jump in and stop him from doing anything. David started firing a million questions at Martin, trying to figure out what was going on, how long this had been happening, and why he hadn't told anyone. Martin seemed oddly calm about the whole thing. He didn't seem bothered by the shock he'd just caused. He didn't really answer many of David's questions, just sort of shrugged and said that everything was fine. Then Marcia dropped another bombshell. She casually told us that she wouldn't need the apartment anymore because she'd be moving in with Martin at his family home. It was like she was just letting everyone know about her new life. No warning, no discussion, just a definitive statement. And she seemed so sure about everything, like she had it all figured out, and the rest of us were just supposed to accept it. Juan, still trying to process everything, then asked Martin about his wife. Martin didn't seem uncomfortable at all. He told us that he and his wife were already separated and going through a divorce. It didn't seem to faze him, but for the rest of us, it felt like everything had just turned completely upside down. The rest of the evening was a complete blur of awkwardness. Everyone was trying to process what had just happened, and no one knew how to react. It was so hard to understand how Marcia had gotten to this point. She used to be so different, so put together, but now it was like she had completely lost touch with reality. A few days after the dinner, Juan and David called me and Marcus over to their house. They asked us to come, but they specifically told Marcia to leave Martin out of it this time. It was clear they wanted to talk to her alone. We went over, unsure of what to expect. When we got there, things didn't start off well. Juan and David were both clearly very upset. They sat Marcia down and started talking about her relationship with Martin. They asked her if she knew what she was doing, if she understood the consequences of being with someone twice her age, especially when his kids were older than she was. Juan kept asking her why she was making these decisions, and it was clear she fundamentally disagreed with Marcia's choice. Marcia, though, was convinced that everything would be fine. She said she was sure about her decision, and everything would work out once Martin's divorce was final. She seemed so certain of herself, but the rest of us couldn't understand how she could be so sure. David and Juan kept trying to get through to her, but Marcia wouldn't listen. She wasn't angry or defensive. She just kept repeating that everything would work out, that she was happy with her decision, and no one needed to worry about her. It was so clear that no matter what anyone said, she wasn't going to change her mind. The whole conversation felt like a dead end. We all tried to explain our concerns, but Marcia didn't seem to care. It was like she had already made up her mind, and nothing was going to make her see things differently. At one point, I felt like I didn't even know who she was anymore. It was hard to imagine the Marcia we knew now being the same person who used to care so much about her family and her future. No one really knows how to react to all this. It's so out of character for Marcia, and it's hard to understand how she ended up here. I think everyone in the family is still in shock. We've tried to talk to her, to tell her that this isn't the right path, but it's like she's in her own little world now, and there's no way to bring her back. Update 3. It's been a truly strange couple of months, and things with Marcia and Martin have only become more complicated. I honestly don't know what to think anymore. Everyone's just feeling so confused and uncomfortable about everything. The situation keeps getting messy, and the more we try to make sense of it, the more questions just keep popping up. It's hard to keep track of how all this has spiraled. David, especially, is the most hurt by all of this. Martin has been his friend since high school. They've known each other for decades. David never imagined, not in a million years, that Martin would end up with Marcia. I don't think any of us could have predicted this. And to make it worse, it all happened so quickly. It was just too much, too fast. 2 months ago, Martin's divorce was finalized. I remember when he told everyone about it. It wasn't a huge surprise, as he and Charlotte had been having problems for years, but still, you could tell it hit David hard. They had all been friends for so long, and this was just something no one ever expected. They'd always seemed so solid, like a perfect family. But then, the very next day after his divorce went through, Martin proposed to Marcia. Yeah, you read that right. The next day. I don't even know what to say about that. It was like they were moving in a whirlwind. The proposal was so quick, and the engagement seemed like it came out of nowhere. Marcia, of course, was ecstatic. She was thrilled that things were moving so fast. But for the rest of us, it just felt rushed and incredibly strange. And then, just last week, they got married. They certainly didn't waste any time, did they? The wedding was huge, way bigger than anyone expected. Everyone was talking about it. The reception was filled with whispers. People couldn't help but gossip. And I'm sure everyone was trying to figure out what the hell was going on behind the scenes. I can't even count how many times I overheard people talking about how bizarre this whole thing was. One was telling me how uncomfortable she felt, especially because of her connection with Martin's ex-wife, Charlotte. Charlotte and Juan have been friends for years, and Charlotte has always been a part of our extended family circle. I know Juan felt really torn about the whole situation. She wasn't sure where her loyalty should lie. But when Charlotte found out about Marcia and Martin's relationship, it was like everything changed. Charlotte's suspicions about Martin having an affair were now confirmed. She felt completely betrayed, and the whole thing turned ugly. It wasn't just the affair, it was the fact that Martin had gotten Marcia pregnant while he was still married to Charlotte. Charlotte just couldn't handle it. And now, she completely cut Juan off. That's what's been eating at Juan. She's been feeling so guilty about losing Charlotte's friendship. Charlotte had been her friend for decades, and now it feels like their friendship is over, just like that. I can tell it's really bothering Juan, and I don't know how to help her. The whole thing is just so messy. Charlotte isn't even talking to anyone in the family now, and I'm sure Juan is feeling the crushing weight of it all. As for Marcia, she seems happy, I guess. At least, that's how it looks on the surface. She's been posting about her new life with Martin nonstop, acting like everything is perfect. She's got a new husband, and from the outside, it seems like they're living the dream. But I can't help but feel like there's so much more to this story. Something just doesn't sit right with me, and I'm not the only one feeling that way. It's hard to trust the situation, especially when there's so much history, so many unresolved issues, so many deeply hurt feelings. We're all incredibly skeptical about how this will turn out. Marcia and Martin seem to think everything will work out fine, but I don't know. We've all seen things fall apart before. We saw how quickly things moved between them, and it's just hard to believe that this whirlwind romance will last. I want to be happy for Marcia, truly, but I'm struggling to shake the feeling that she's making a huge, colossal mistake. There's just too much baggage. Too many people involved with hurt feelings and betrayals. The more I think about it, the more I realize that none of us has really gotten a chance to process everything. We haven't had time to talk about how we feel about all this, and now it's all just happened so quickly. The wedding, the divorce, the way Marcia jumped into this relationship. It's like everything's been happening in fast forward, and we're all left in the dust trying to catch up. So, that's where we are. This whole situation is just beyond. What do you guys think? Has anyone ever seen family drama escalate this wildly? Seriously, tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know if I'm crazy for feeling this uneasy about it all. ***.